me. I don't want to get too deep in anything because I want to give enough time to be able to do a pretty decent portrait. But my name is Armusik. I am almost 30 years in this business as a professional. I am a classical artist, paint a lot of mythological, religious, historical portrait art. I've been doing it now, as I said, for 30 years. I've been teaching for the last 20, acting as a teacher and a mentor to a lot of artists all around the world, actually, right now. I teach workshops. I've traveled all across the country for different workshops over the years. I teach them out of my studio in Hamburg, which is where I live. A lot of the projects, if you get a chance to see some of these portraits that I have here, this painting like this, I just worked on with a student from Virginia who spent the week in my studio with me. So I host artists from all over the country, actually some around the world. I did this actually 2 weeks beforehand with a woman from California who spent the week with me. Nice. But I do weekly workshops, I should say weekly lessons with a lot of different artists. I've had students in the UK, Saudi Arabia, South America, all across the globe. Been doing that for a lot of years. I even had students from China travel from China to come study with me a couple years back. So, but I guess, you know, what I've learned over the years is while I've really enjoyed trying the journey of trying to really understand old masters' classical work like Caravaggio, and even academic masters like Hubero and other artists of that time period, was being able to kind of take my knowledge and kind of help others with it, because I had such a hard time. Even though I went to college, I explained to some people here, I went to Penn State, they kind of put the paintbrushes in my hand but didn't tell me what to do with them. And here I was, like, I went to study there. I started studying art history, and I was like, wow, I love Caravaggio. How do I do that? No one knew how. And it was just like as if art was dead, any kind of representational art in college. So I kind of embarked on that journey, spent a semester living in Italy, and that really kind of springboarded my understanding of really what I wanted to do when I got back. And so I've kind of been on this journey all my life, and while I didn't get a lot of help in school, didn't get a lot of help as a professional, I always kind of said to myself, if I ever get to the point where I can get enough success where I can pass that knowledge on and help others, that would be my life's kind of goal. So it's been really wonderful working with young kids, maybe 10 years old, to one of my oldest students is 78, 79 at this point. People that are in retirement that are just like, hey, I wanted to paint all my life, I couldn't. My mom wouldn't let me use that as a career, and then they're like, all of a sudden they're like, I'm doing what I want now. So, giving them that right kind of path has been the most wonderful thing. So they're not wasting time like I did, making mistakes, going to the wrong sources. I mean, today you can find sources for anything. And, it's art we're talking about, so there's many different solutions to a problem. But I've prided myself on coming up with a pragmatic solution to a lot of academic level art. I'm not too restrictive and telling people to do 100 practice things before you can go out and be a professional. I really want to immerse them in, drop them in the water, and make them really get that experience, get up and moving, and trying to get a career going and trying to sell art, because that's something I've been very fortunate to figure out. I've sold, at this point, I'm sure probably over 7 figures of art myself, and that's been a lot of work on my own without galleries. The kind of work I was showing, creating years ago, galleries didn't want to have anything to do with it. Definitely the subject matter and the representational work. So I kind of had to go off on my own in the era of the internet. I got out of school in '95. The internet was just a few years later, and I dove in as quick as I could on social media, and really tried to leverage all that, learn marketing, and now I kind of share that with all my students. So it's really wonderful to kind of see it all going full circle. But I kind of covered a breadth of who I am here. You can kind of see some of the examples of my work on the screen. I kind of work in oil paint a lot of times, or charcoal. A lot of these very large paintings, like this one here is 4 foot by 5 foot.
If you've seen any of my work, I'm painting one of the largest series of Dante's Inferno probably ever created. It's 40 paintings that are 4 foot by 5 foot. So far, I'm up to the 14th one, and that's in 6 years. So it's been quite a bit of work to get this accomplished. My goal is to finish it and get the whole series shown in Florence right now. I have great contact there, and I'm also going to be producing a book with a art. He is a medieval literature teacher from University of Wisconsin-Madison. Retired, and he's been guiding me through this whole project because it's, reading something 700 years old. it's so complex, and he's really helped kind of guide me through that. But on the whole, I do a lot of charcoal work, portraiture for people. I do a lot of large altar pieces for churches. I've done a lot of religious work since the very beginning, which people told me I was crazy for, but I've carved a great career out doing it. I just recently installed some work at a church in Ohio this summer, and I've got one I'm going to be doing actually for a local church in Allentown. But I've done a lot of really great work. It's the greatest job in the world, getting up every day, being able to do this. I've done every job in the world that wasn't fun, from dishwashing to maintenance to construction all my life. I've worked with my father from the time I was 9. Doing carpentry, so being able to do this every day. I worked when I was first married. I worked a job, and then I worked the whole night, basically painting and trying to get my career started. So I would work until like 2 in the morning, and then get up at 6 and do work, go back there. So I had this kind of 2 parallel careers going at the same time, and then that first day where I got the opportunity to leave my job, never turned back. It's been about 20 years now since I've been out of a job, and but it's a hustle every day. I work every single day on what I do, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Mondays are wonderful. Every day's are wonderful when you're doing what you love. So, and I really strive to kind of push that for my students and my apprentices that I work with. I really want to see everybody have that same experience, being able to do what you love, and to be paid for it. That's kind of a lot of our goals. Not all of us, but it's the greatest thing ever. So, anybody have any questions or anything, or if you'd like?
There's paintings that you showed us, and all of you, well, not that one, but most of those are all oil.
Yes. These are all oils here. This is one of the largest ones I have here. The figurative piece I worked on. I actually started working on this with a student doing something similar with her. But yeah, all these are oil on panel. I paint mostly on panels. There is a piece I'm doing right now on canvas because it's just too large. You can't, anything over 4 foot by 8 foot. I build a lot of my own panels too. I actually build a lot of my own frames as well. Tabernacle frames, which I don't think I have any pictures on there, but some of the frames I have to do for churches and stuff might be 10 feet by 4, or 6 feet or so wide. I've done a lot of that over the years as well, but I love painting on panel because I like the level of detail you can get with the technique that I'm using, and I like the durability of it. Funny enough, I work on wood most of the time, but I've been using these as well for the last bunch of years. These are called aluminum. So this is aluminum panels, and photographers use them. There's one side that's smooth, and they can mount photos to that, and the other side is brushed aluminum. So it'll take gesso on there, and it has a little bit of a tooth to it. But I really like it, and I'm actually painting my entire Dante's Inferno series on those panels. And they're light.
Do they?
Yeah, they don't warp.
Yeah,
they're
no.
light. I do a lot of wood and masonite as well, but I like these a lot. They're really a great panel that's performing well for me. So,
what company do you find has the best prices for you for that?
I like Jerry's very much. I'm an ambassador for them. I've been using them for as long as I've been painting. So I learned how to paint. Well, it would have been 30 years ago. This past August, I started painting when I was 20. And I got a catalog from a kid in college, and we were paying so much for art materials at Penn State.
And he showed me this catalog, this paper catalog at the time, and I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. I get 3 times as much stuff. And it's kind of been the same ever since. And actually now, I've got to the point working with them is that I actually have a signature palette of paint and a drawing kit through Jerry's Artmarama. So if you want to know the exact paints that I'm using here, I actually have a couple extras that I'm using tonight, but I didn't know what I was going to be expecting here to work on. But I have a signature palette. I use Lucas oils a lot of times with them. And I have a charcoal kit that I work with them that's a Marie's charcoal brand that I'm using. Very, very happy with it. But I have information on my site. You could do a search on their website. But I like them a lot. I know them personally, the CEO of the company. It's all a family business. And I just always love what they've been doing. They have a great selection of stuff, and the prices are just really fantastic. So.
And what did you call that panel again?
This is Illumicon. Yeah, this is their particular brand. There's another brand I think called Dibond. Another company has, but I'm not sure. I think it has to be anodized. I think is the name of for the panels for it to be art quality as you can use. And this is already prepared. And they sell it in a bunch of different sizes. When they're small, you don't need any kind of cradle or anything to it. Once you get large, I just glue, for my Dante series, I just glue a wood poplar cradle to the back.
What size is that?
This is 11 by 14.
No, the Dante series that you...
4 foot by 5 foot.
Oh,
yeah, so they're pretty big, yeah. So, yes?
What mediums do you use aside from oil paint?
Just charcoal. Yeah, I've been using oils since the very beginning. I experimented a little bit with some acrylic, but I always liked how oils, being able to move them and have them, live and blending and all that stuff. So I really just locked in on that and kind of specialized in that. But I love charcoal very much. I did pencil all my life when I was a kid, but I didn't have any kind of art instruction or anything until college. And first semester of college, they were like, here's charcoal. I went, wow, this was just, I just love it. And the brand I'm using right now is just phenomenal because it gets super dark if you want it, like almost to black. And it's really just you get a wide range of stuff. I wish I had some of my most recent portraits. I have a book that I'll pass along while I'm working if you guys would like to see some of the drawings I've done. But it's great. I mean, those two mediums have been pretty great for me. They've served me well.
What was the benefit of aluminum over hardboard?
It has a little bit of lightness. It's a little bit more lightweight, and it certainly has it won't warp. Okay. Whereas if you have a wood panel, even if you buy the stuff from the manufacturers, you can have warping issues if you get moisture of one side. Like years ago, I remember dressing one side and not doing the other, and I had a warping issue on a fairly large painting that I had. This stuff won't do that.
Even when you cradled it?
Yeah, even when I cradled it. Yeah, I just got into it and gets the right amount of moisture. But we fixed it. Had a lot of fun. Anything else? I'm going to work here. Feel free to ask me anything you want. I don't mind answering any questions. I don't keep any secrets or anything about anything I do. So I don't mind at all if you ask. And I can talk and work at the same time, so that's perfectly fine. So, want to get started?
Yes.
What's your name?
Will.
Will. Nice to meet you. Pleasure. Have a seat here.
Well,
yeah, let's see. Have a seat here, and we can see what works best.
And you are videotaping this?
Mm-hmm. Now, just to kind of preface what I'm going to be doing tonight, I wanted to at least bring a couple examples here of work that I've started. So this is actually another little panel, but this is what would be considered underpainting for me. This would be something I would spend probably maybe a half hour on, not even just trying to just rough in areas. And usually this would be, if I was teaching somebody, this would be like day one. You're just getting a monochromatic underpainting. I usually like to use like burnt umber for it, get a nice warmth underneath. And then, getting into like day two, we start bringing in a little bit of color, a little bit of roughing in these areas. This is going to be where I'm going to kind of try to get to tonight. It's not going to be quite as detailed as say, the refinements of these pieces, where this is 5 days of work. But this is a piece that's about maybe 2 days or so. So I'm probably going to be looking for something that's a little bit more here. The layering process I do, it's, you're basically trying to rough in a lot of your color on day two, and then building on that a second time. The Latoura, putting another coat of kind of a transparent, semi-transparent white layer over top of this and working into it again. It's kind of like the equivalent of a sculptor, using really, really harsh tools in the beginning, big chisels, and then breaking it down so that you're using more and more delicate materials, so you're getting more of that softness. It's the same kind of thing in the layering process here, is trying to get that smoothness of the skin and transition to things.
What do you use for the oil medium to mix around, or do you use
oil medium? One that I really like is I'm using. There's a couple different ones I do use, but this one is liquid fine detail, not regular liquid.
No, I know
the fine detail, kind of has a syrupy kind of feel to it. Liquid, regular stuff I don't like. It's gelatinous and not really that great for doing what I'm doing here. But I also use Chelsea mediums. If you've ever smelled those before, they're lavender base. So it's a lavender spike oil base. So it's not toxic. They're extremely expensive. A bottle like this would be about $30, I think. But they're fantastic to use. Really, really beautiful smell in your studio. It doesn't have all that nasty chemical kind of smell. But this is great because I can use this if I was painting pretty hard one day. Overnight, I wake up next morning and the layer's dry.
Yeah,
so then I go back into another layer. And that's good because I produce a lot of work over the years, a lot of commission work and everything, so I need to really produce quickly, and I'm down to the wire a lot of times with drying times. And this stuff really never fails me. I really like the product. And I've been using it for most of my career. So I know it's not a traditional thing, but this is kind of going in with the pragmatic side that I mentioned earlier, where I'm trying to do academic work, but thinking about running a business, because I have to produce work that sells, and so I can't do stuff I would do in college where it doesn't matter if it dries, I have to move quickly. So, but it's great. It's never really failed me. So, any other questions? Okay. I will.
Once the glass is on, or not?
It's entirely up to you, I guess. Would you rather?
I know.
Sounds good. Work with it. And when I paint, you might notice I don't have a lot of paint on my palette. About a pea size is all I'm really using. And that's even when I'm using a very big painting, really big painting. So I don't really get a lot of paint on the canvas per paint. As I said, I'm going to start everything with a burnt umber. And I'm only using liquid tonight because I'm trying to do kind of 2 days of work in one day. Normally, if I was doing this here, I would probably start with like a turpentine, or there's another product that Jerry's makes, and I can't remember what they call it because it's brand new. But it's kind of like a terpenoid substitute.
Gamsar? Is it
It's
Gamsar?
Gamsol?
It's something like Sol, but it's their thing. I can't remember what they call it. It's very similar to that. And
So
it's
you don't
cheaper.
you're not going to prime that?
Studio Salt. That's what it's called, Studio Salt. So I prime this, just to let you know too, I put this, put 4 coats of gesso on, sanded it, and then I just put I just toned the panel with, this morning with some, using some of that Studio Salt line.
Oh.
So I'll start off with, as I said, just a very simple layer here of burnt umber. And I like to use a brush. These are Hamburg Premier brushes that I use. These are the same ones that are in my kit on Jerry's. And I like to start with a brush that kind of reminds me of a pencil. You know, it's nothing too big or too small, you know, but enough that I can get out here and kind of be, you know, relatively loose. Which
Where should I look now?
it's entirely up to you. Do you want to look?
I should look at something so I stay in the same position, I guess.
Yeah, it's entirely up to you. You want to start right there?
Good.
That works, yeah. Okay. All right, so first I'm looking to, I want to get a rough positioning of this head here. And I'd like to work fairly geometric in the beginning. I think it's very important to stay geometric before you start rounding things out. Once you round things out, you kind of lose the skeletal structure. And because the face is mostly represented by our skull, you're going to want to keep that.
So do you always cut in the lines like proportionally?
What I'm trying to do initially is kind of break his face into thirds, so I understand a little bit the distance between the eyebrows to the nose to the chin, and the eyebrows to the top of the hairline here.
Do you ever work on two paintings at one time while one's drying?
I've got about, right now, probably 12 to 15
Yep.
on months.
I had to ask. I just had to ask.
Large and small.
Yep.
In the middle of doing those big commissions I'm doing right now, I finished those two. Sort of finished. I have to do a little work on the one. We can get everything done before my student went back to California. lot of sketching when I'm doing very large pieces like my Dante series, because a lot of that, what I'm doing with those pieces, I'm working with that gentleman I told you that is a retired professor of medieval literature. And I try to kind of come up with compositions, and he'll kind of, look at what I'm doing versus the text, and kind of gives me a lot of feedback. So I need to, alter things a lot of times.
Depending on how you define them, I guess. I mean, it is like temporary.
Yep.
Unless it isn't manuscript.
And I'm just kind of jumping back and forth between a couple different brushes. Usually when I'm working on like a day two, I've got maybe about a dozen brushes near the end. I'm kind of thinking of some brushes as being, warm brushes, some brushes being cool brushes, some being more brushes that are going to handle lights, darks, and things like that.
So what proportion of paint to the good liquid are you making?
Well, and I should have mentioned this, the beginning part, when I put all this on, that's the last bit of liquid I put on there. I haven't added any since, and that's what I like to work on, because then you don't make the mistake of putting too much on. So this surface, what I've worked on here now, is giving me probably about 3 to 4 hours of work time to work in it, and it should give me a pretty decent work area. And it'll start seizing up, and I'll have to stop working on certain areas.
So when did you use the liquid for the drawing, or?
I used the liquid in the drawing at the beginning, but when I put this whole layer on, I just kind of roughly covered everything. That was when I used liquid on it. I stopped using it.
Do you have a certain technique you follow all the time, like as opposed to, how can I word this, midtones to lights to darks, or do you have a certain order you would like to go?
I like to kind of come in with the initial layer here, a little bit light, mid-tone to light, where I'm starting. And that way I can bring things a little bit darker, or I can bring lighter from there. And that's kind of where I'm doing here. There's not a huge difference in light on his face. So I'm just trying to kind of break things a little bit right now, to stretch that contrast. But I would usually do this even if there was some contrast, like some shadows and stuff like that. I would try to bring things in a little bit on the light side and work darker. I think it's just much easier. I would do that early in my career. I would do kind of a darker and build up my lights from there. And it took a lot longer, and I don't think everything was as vibrant as it was. And really, what I've tried to do in my entire process of my career is come up with a more realistic way to be able to produce work in an expedited time frame. And that doesn't mean cutting quarters as far as quality is concerned, but my process, I kind of learned that as a kid with my father. He was a master carpenter and worked on a job with a lot of other guys, and he was near the end of one company he was doing work with as a supervisor. And he had a lot of really great carpenters that worked with him. They were fantastic with their tools, very, very good, but very slow. And when you're budgeting a job, you know, you have a schedule you have to stick to. So he would always enforce with me, it was like, you know, you have to get good, but you have to get fast and keep that same quality. You know, you can be a great carpenter, but if you learn to produce and keep that same amount of quality in less time, you'll be more successful. And I look at that same thing as, you know, in my studio, is, you know, if I could paint 2 portraits in the time that it would take somebody to do one, that's certainly something that's going to be a lot more advantageous for me, you know, just getting, you know, work done. And I try to teach that with my students, you know, really push them and get them to, you know, produce in that kind of expedited time frame.
Where's your studio?
I'm located in Hamburg. I have a little Victorian home with a carriage house, where the studio is. And I have a bed and breakfast actually right next door that people come from everywhere and stay there and work with me. And it's fantastic. It's far enough away from everything, but close enough I can get to Philly in an hour, and New York in 2, or across the state, wherever I gotta go. Love it.
So you wanted to do portraits, but like, when did you get to a point where, I imagine in the beginning you'd be nervous about doing a portrait? So when did you get confident?
It's like everything else. You keep doing it enough, keep making enough mistakes, you figure out a lot of who you are, and you get confident by working hard. I was a very shy person. You know, it wasn't always easy, but you know, I was determined. So whatever I needed to learn, I had to learn it. You know, I made plenty of mistakes in my career and everything else over the years, but some of them very advantageous. You know, good things come from failure a lot of times. I think a lot of people don't realize that. They think that, you know, failures are things that are just, you know, insurmountable, and, you know, they end your career and that's it. But you know, I've kind of embraced a lot of that. And I hope if you get a chance, if you ever need any kind of, I've got some great content on my site, some vlogs, some YouTube channel I have that has an artist series on it for the truth about being an artist kind of stuff. So I just kind of share a lot of experiences and motivational kind of stuff because, you know, we go through a lot as artists. We're kind of putting our hearts out there when we show our work. And it's hard to go through disappointments and setbacks and everything else. And believe me, I've had tons of them. And I feel very passionate about helping other people, you know, kind of overcome their problems and, you know, get ahead of this in this business and, you know, find the joy that I've found in it.
About 15 minutes.
Okay.
So I took a drawing class and I knew that we'd have to do portraits, self-portraits. And I'm kind of anal about my grades. Like I got a 4.01 every class except 2 since 1978. So, but I didn't do artwork.
Right.
So I did a charcoal drawing of myself, and like it started to look like me. And I was doing the eyes, and it was so weird that I was like looking back at myself. It was very surreal.
That's great.
But I was always a photographer, and I love doing, taking portraits, pictures of people. So maybe that's why I had some success with that, just studying the face.
Right. I feel bad I didn't take any in college. They gave us an option. We were allowed to apply to be in the fine arts program, and if you got in, you had the option of using the credits you would take for photography for more figure drawing classes. So I was like, well, I'm gonna take more of that. Kind of wish I would have taken some, but it definitely helps. I mean, you need a lot of knowledge and some things like that in this business just to get good shots, get reference and stuff like that.
Speaking of references, do you hire models?
All the time. A number of different people. I have people that I would hire for everyday stuff. Trying to think if that old man here is my neighbor. The one on the bottom is my neighbor. The guy in the middle is a fraternity brother. That is a girl that I met years ago on Facebook. That is a model that I've hired from a site called Model Mayhem. This guy was an ex-Marine. He got out of the Marines and said, I'm not cutting my hair anymore. That is a model that I've hired. She was from Harrisburg for Cure King. That is also my neighbor, Mr. Berger. I use him a lot. He's awesome.
Yes, character.
I love him. He's the coolest guy. I sit there and chat with him all the time while we work. And, he's just the coolest guy. He's right there too. You can't see his face. But that was the worst one I've hired him for. I had to have him. He was literally laying on a plank in my living room. That was a crucifixion of St. Peter. Yeah, he's really, really cool. I really appreciate his time.
So in your book of charcoal drawings, you added color to some of them?
It was some of them. It's a preliminary drawing for a painting. So there were some paintings in the end there that I would have started from a drawing that I did first. So some of them I think there's some of my Dante series in the back that actually shows some of the sketching I did. And that kid proposed for that. He worked at Lowe's where we're at. So sometimes I do the crazy thing of, wow, they look really great in a painting. You think I should ask? And my wife looks at me and I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. So if people think you're crazy, I just hand them a business card and say, if you'd like to see what I do, here it is. Probably about 50% of the time they'll write to it.
I remember of another artist group, and went to hear a man talk. I think in his wife worked with him, and he said something about getting models, and asked me if I wanted to, and he told me, I get tired of painting pretty people.
Oh, jeez.
No, it was fine. I mean, he was being honest. It was okay. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm no model.
More character.
What's that?
You have more
I
character.
don't know about that.
Yeah, everything I use is people that I've either hired or found locally.
That's true with a lot of old masters.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you look at Caravaggio's work, I mean, he had plenty of models he used over and over again. And it's not that some of the people that I'm using for my models that I pick my neighbor, I mean, he's the perfect guy for it. But there's other ones, I'll find people where we're out. Found people at my church, found people at the supermarket. I found my model for Nero at a supermarket. near me. I have this painting where Rome is burning behind him. They slouched in a chair, and I picked this really kind Englishman that was working. He had moved here from Britain, and he ended up working in some, I think it was like the dairy out or something. I saw him one day, like, I think he'd make a good Nero. And he was just the nicest guy in the world, you know, just so polite and kind. And like, he came to pose, I put the stuff on him, and he just totally didn't look the part. Like, he just looked too jolly. And then I think, gosh, maybe I was wrong about this. And worked with him, you know, taking photos, trying to find out the best place, you know. And then finally, we were near the end, like an hour and a half into it. He got a call from his wife, and she chewed him out for something. I don't know what it was, but he got off the phone with me, and he just slouched in that chair, like all like upset and kind of mad. And I was like, "Yes, that's it." You know? And he nailed it. I was like, "Thank you, like that's perfect." He wasn't happy, but it was perfect. It was really good. So that's how it happens, though. Sometimes you know, you just have to kind of go with it.
Something you're not painting all the shadows on his face.
You're asking what I'm painting right now, the shadows?
Well, no. I'm just saying, like, how the light is casting a shadow from his glasses.
Yeah, I'm gonna get there next.
So you would put it in.
Yeah, I'm going to. I have. I'm putting some Van Dyke Brown in there in the neck right now, and I'm gonna use the same thing.
I didn't know if you would leave it out on purpose.
No, I'll definitely. Even in this layer right now, like I was trying to just. I'm usually just trying to make marks for my next layer. So, you know, I'm really trying right now to get some kind of semblance of a tonal layer that I can build onto. You know, I know I'm not going to get the lightest of the lights in this layer, and the darkest of the darks in this layer, but it's kind of a work in progress from here. So, having something there to work on in the next layer definitely helped me to build that. So I definitely like to lay it in, you know, to have it in there.
So you paint what you see. Like yes. if you didn't want those cast shadows on his face, you would change the lighting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I've kind of learned over the years not to be a slave to my reference material. If I have it, if it's a person or a photo, there's a lot of times I have to kind of rework things in order to make them, you know, look better. Because, you know, I've come to find maybe it's a little bit of social media, like, it's kind of a good thing sometimes. It might be hard to see, to deal with, but, you know, you put something in there, you're like, but the photo did that, you know, and everybody's like, I don't care, it's stupid, you know. You're like, yeah, okay, it does look stupid, so why am I being a slave to it? You know, you need to be good at editing, no matter what our subject matter is, so that it kind of is important.
I make my nose smaller on my paintings.
Your nose?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, I would say one of the most common things is people make the nose long.
Make it long?
Long. It's usually one of the most common. I usually start my classes with a kind of a drawing exercise where I have them draw before I work with them, to kind of see what they're, you know, what they're bringing to it, and to know kind of a baseline. And I would say most of the time I work with people, it's usually that. It's the very beginning of it.
Why is that, you think?
I don't know. I think that and it is an elusive thing, you know, like if you don't have any real training doing something, I think it becomes hard to gauge, you know, how long is the nose. You know, you might notice in the beginning of this, I actually had the nose too long myself. And then I started looking at the distance between the bottom of his glasses and the bottom of the nostrils. And I said, all right, I got to hike it up a little bit. And that really helped is the mustache area because, his filtrum mustache area here is going to be a lot more wide, which I didn't have in the initial.
We need to start wrapping up.
Okay. One more minute here and I'll break it down. Just a little bit of dark around his eyes. And this would be, kind of what I would do if I was racing through trying to get a portrait, just to where I had something good to work on the next day.
And you're really not using a whole lot of paint.
No.
So it'll dry.
It will definitely dry. Yeah, that's kind of the purpose too, is to not overburden it, because no matter how hard. I mean, if I wanted to do this al prima, I could keep tacking on more paint to be able to build that kind of volume on a person. But what I'm trying to do at this point is, very much like this. I think I actually got it to maybe my second, third day look. It still doesn't quite have all of its beautiful features, all those details kind of figured out. But, I'm getting the intensity of some of those tones and values, trying to get, the most intense whites, the darkest darks, and so that I can, kind of continue to work detail on there. Very much the same thing with this, trying to get these initial parts, and then I'll work more and more detail over the top of it. What you're trying to do first is just kind of close that gap. Day one, we're working on usually a white or I like using a lot of times like a gray kind of gesso surface. With this one, I kind of tone the panel so it's a little bit more off of white. But first day, you're working on that background. You're painting on whatever color, if it's gray, white, or that surface. Day two, you're already painting on flesh. So it becomes less work to cover, and then you start building those subtleties up more and more as you go. So near the end, you're putting light layers of, glazes and things like that on top of it to be able to, get more of those effects. Trying to get, like I did on this piece here, trying to get, this beautiful red that was in the original image. Just fabulous painter. Lugaro is the artist here. But just getting all these temperatures, it's actually both of these. Actually, this guy is Lugaro, it's a self-portrait. But look at the temperature differences of these two pieces. I mean, completely different. Beautiful pieces, but
How do you control the drying time before you glaze these?
How do I control it?
Yeah.
I just wait till it's finger dry in order to glaze the next
Okay,
day.
you don't control the temperature in any way?
No. I keep my studio at least not too cool. If it's a little cool, it's going to take a little while longer. But usually it works out pretty well. You give it a good 12 to 24 hours drying time or so, and then I'll start working and start glazing it. Now, if you're talking about varnishing, when I'm done,
I've been varnished, I'm sorry.
Varnishing, I'll wait until it's done. I will use a retouch varnish on it first. I definitely have been using more spray retouch varnishes in the last few years. Sometimes I'll spray them into a can and brush it on. That works out really well too. Gets it a little bit heavier. It's nice. But when I do a final varnish on these, I think the only one here is a final varnish on this years ago. You can see, you can see it's got a real nice. It's a little dusty, but Gives a really nice precision to it. Yeah, it gets a really nice luster, I should say.
Do you ever get bubbles come up when you're varnishing?
If you do it too early, yeah, definitely. I've done that one time. I varnished one of my apprentice's pieces, and it was actually, I think, it was a humidity issue too, and maybe too much of it. If you use a little too thick of a varnish, and the humidity can get into that, and you can get that bubble situation. And in that case, you have to strip it off. And the only way you can do that is get like distilled turpentine and put it on with like a rag and work it. It's very delicate.
What
very
kind of varnish are you using?
Demar varnish.
Demar, oh.
Yeah, I like Demar varnish the best. I know Winsor Newton has some kind of synthetic.
Sorry, varnish.
Yeah, there's a couple of them, but I like the traditional Demar varnish. I've been using it for years. Good.
Oh, what I'd like to suggest is we break now.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I think everybody's going to pass me have something to drink and continue to ask questions. And he gets to see what it looks like now.
Like your oils are layered, but they look flat. Masters a lot of times